Hi, the name's Dash, and I'm here to talk about WandaVision. The reason why I'm reviewing it this late is mainly because I was actually in the midst of WandaVision and TFAWS while creating this channel. So I thought, because TFAWS was like the more fresh show, like more of a fresh show, because that was the show that was about to get released. I thought I'll first start off with TFAWS, then, come back to WandaVision. So now that I'm here, let's talk about it. And of course, if you noticed, I'm wearing this dark jacket. That's mainly because I thought this jacket would look similar to the dark red costume Wanda had on the show. So that's why I thought I'll wear it while reviewing the show. So now, without any further ado, let's talk about WandaVision. Starting off with a brief summary. So this show basically takes place after Tony Stark's death in Avengers Endgame. So the last time we saw her was when she was talking to Clint Barton, aka the Hawkeye, right after Tony Stark's death, and she was just talking about Vision's death and how he was like how he did a lot for the Avengers, I guess. And then it was for that reason, like because of whatever she had lost, like in Infinity War, she lost the love of her life, Vision. That was not just once but twice, because remember, she herself had to kill Vision, then Thanos just rewinded time and then killed him again. Then she also lost her brother in Age of Ultron, because Ultron killed him. And for that reason, she lost a lot, and because of her mourning her loss, she just creates this reality that helps her escape all these problems, which was quite interesting how she just like does that just to escape all her problems. And that's what this show is mainly about. So now let's start off with the good. First of all, I would like to give a round of applause for Marvel for trying to step out of their comfort zone, and they were quite successful at it. And the reason for that is because I remember when I was watching the trailer, I was like, this show is going to be nothing like, whatever we have seen before. What we have seen before are usually, like metal suits flying around, like, the Iron Man suit. Then we have so many CGI aliens battling against the Avengers, and so many explosions, a lot of fist fights with hands and legs and all that stuff. I think the fact that, the show does something different, takes a different approach, was a fresh of breath air, in my opinion. I guess it's safe to say that. So it's for that reason I was quite happy with Marvel with what they did with WandaVision. So that was amazing. Now let's move on to the second point, and that is how they use sitcoms to create realities, or to be more specific, how Wanda uses sitcoms to create realities. And it's not just because how sitcoms are entertaining. They just like I don't know how to describe sitcoms, but usually sitcoms are usually there to crack a few laughs. I guess that's what sitcoms usually do. But then when I watched episode 8 specifically, I remember seeing how when she was young, she used to watch sitcoms with her family to learn English, and then that's when I realized, I think there's more meaning to her using sitcoms to create her own reality, and not just using sitcoms, but then how she uses certain sitcoms which she herself used to watch as a kid, such as The Office, the Friends, I guess, and a couple of other sitcoms which I cannot think of right now. So that's when I realized that, man, this is really brilliant how she uses certain sitcoms to create her reality. It just gives more meaning to it because of her watching sitcoms as a child. Speaking of episode 8, I think this is another good point about the show, or a good thing about the show, mainly because this episode was the best episode, and not just that, but it was also the most sentimental episode. And it's partially due to this episode being sentimental, it was even the best episode in my opinion. So let's start off with the first reason why it was sentimental, and that was because Agatha Harkness sent WandaVision, not WandaVision, but Wanda to her childhood, sent her back to her childhood to relive it. And the reason why this was sentimental was because her childhood was quite tragic, which we get to learn here, which we get to learn in this episode. And the reason why it was because, first of all, her parents get killed by Tony Stark, and then not just that, but then like she and her brother have to like watch a Stark bomb for 2 days continuously with the hope that it doesn't explode in front of their face and kill them. and just the fact that they were little children and having to watch that just really made it sad, and it must have been very uncomfortable for them to just like watch that bomb not explode. So there's that. But then I think this scene made it the most sentimental, and there was this scene where Wanda, like it's exactly after she comes back from the blip, when she goes to visit Vision's corpse, I guess, because she knew Vision was there. She wanted to find out where Vision was, and she wanted to see where, and because she wanted to see where she was, she goes to this corporation where Tyler Hayward was there, and then his men were actually there, actually dismantling Vision's corpse. This Wanda having to watch it was really emotional, not just for her, but even for the audience. And then it just becomes even more emotional from there, because then she goes to Vision, she sees Vision's head specifically with the Mind Stone off, and then she's about to like touch Vision, and then she's like, "I can't feel you," which was like a callback to Avengers Infinity War when Vision was like, "I feel you," when WandaVision was about to kill him. Just looking at the callback just really made it really sad. And then not just because of the callback, but just the acting done by Elizabeth Olsen was, in my opinion, was just like beautiful. Just the way she was able to build up the emotions, and not just that, but even the camera, like how they were able to capture the emotions while filming it. I think they did a brilliant job with that scene, so I was really proud of that. And then obviously this is the last point why this episode was so emotional. Emotional was because after this, it was exactly after she sees Vision's like corpse, which is going to be like capitalized on, because his body was made of vibranium. Just after dealing with that, she gets to realize that Vision had actually bought a land for them to actually live together, and this was exactly before he died. But then the saddest part is she gets to know about it after he died, and more importantly, after she comes back from turning into dust. When Thanos snaps and turns her into dust, and after coming back, is exactly when she gets to know when Vision had actually bought a land for them to live together, and just seeing this really just almost like, not almost, but actually touched me. And I didn't cry, but I could like I could see why why one would actually cry when watching this scene, because then she herself cries, and then she creates this reality herself from like from there. Like it looks like she created it out of nothing, but actually she really created it out of something, given the fact that she builds up all this sadness in her. She had all this sadness about after seeing how like she could have had a life with her love of her life, but then like all of that is gone. And so it really makes complete sense why she would create such a reality like that. And that's when we get to also just realize, just learn everything about her, and where and why she is where she is right now, why she has created a reality, because they clarify that. And the way they clarify it by capturing all the emotions throughout the entire episode was just brilliant. And that's why I really love this episode. Now that we are done with good, actually there's one more point, and it's also kind of related to the ugly, so it's a bit of both. And that is actually this trio, which consists of Randall Park, Darcy Lewis, and Monica Rambeau. I think that's her name, right? Maria is her mother's name, right? I think this trio, in my opinion, is one of the best trio in this entire MCU. And not just because they're like very cool characters, like that are good at fighting, like Captain America or Iron Man, but just the chemistry they have with each other is just beautiful. Because you have like Monica Rambeau on one side, who's really serious about her work. She's like she's doing all the risky work. For example, how she goes to the reality to talk to Wanda, then Wanda suddenly just pushes her away out of the reality. That was definitely a risky job, but that's the kind of character she is, taking up all the risks. And then you also have but then you have Darcy Lewis and Randall Park. Randall Park is somewhat of a like risk taker. He does a job similar to what Monica Rambeau does, but then like his character is more similar to Darcy Lewis. He's more of the hilarious character. And then Darcy Lewis is, in my opinion, she was the most hilarious character on the show. She was more or less the comic relief, in my opinion. I guess it's safe to say that. She just watches the entire sitcom throughout the show, and then the sitcom which Wanda has created for her reality, and she keeps commenting that, just her watching her reacting to that was quite hilarious in my opinion. Speaking of the trio, let's move on to the ugly. And like I said, speaking of the trio, I think if the trio actually had more screen time, the show would have been more interesting to watch. I think these trio had something going on, which I believe they could have focused on more. But I guess they had to get the plot going. I understand why they couldn't spend more time, but it was really amazing to see this trio, and I really hope they could have had more time together. So that's why I feel like, sorry, this wasn't exactly ugly, but in my opinion it was actually quite bad. So there's that. Another thing that was bad in my opinion was Tyler Hayward. I think his character initially I looked quite forward to it. First of all, I didn't really expect him to be the villain, but he was a villain. But then when he was the villain, I realized that he isn't exactly that much of a remarkable villain. He really has a very typical goal, that is to just to take down Wanda, destroy her reality. But there's really nothing special about him, or there was really nothing that made him stand out from other villains. In a way, he was somewhat of a generic villain. So there's that. Apart from these 2 points, there weren't really anything that was bad about the show. There wasn't really anything that was bad about the show. But let's move on to the ugly. First of all, the first point that was ugly in my opinion was just the origin Monica Rambeau had to become. I believe her name is Photon. Like that's her comic book character's name. She's like the not new Captain Marvel, but she's her powers are somewhat similar to Captain Marvel. But if you compare her origin, like the way she gets the superpowers, it seemed very uh, it was like okay, but then like it wasn't so interesting. It was definitely not a very unique way. It's just like she just goes through the energy field. She just thinks about some things about her past, like some things which Carol Danvers told her, and then her mother told her. Her mother is Maria Rambeau, and then she just thinks about it. All of a sudden, her eyes just glow to blue. I just really found that okay. So that's how she gets the power. Like, it didn't seem so interesting to me. I think that's the thing. I mean, at least it was a cool thing. She had the powers. The powers were cool. How she just absorbs the energy, and I think, and then oh yeah, let's not forget. I think whatever is thrown at her. So if a bullet is thrown at her, it just phases through her. I think that was cool. I think that's the reason why I found it to be okay. But the way she got the power was just like it didn't really stand out to me. In my opinion, even Carol Danvers' way of getting her superpowers was even more interesting when she she just shoots the engine filled with tesseract, and then she gets the energy of the tesseract goes into her and she gets the power. I found that even more interesting than Monica Rambeau's origin, or yeah, Monica Rambeau's origin. So there's that. Now moving on to the next point was the way they reveal Agatha Harkness as a villain. I think that wasn't that was like okay. I mean, the thing is that we kind of knew that she was going to be the villain. We kind of predicted it, so it was really of no surprise. There's nothing so shocking about it. It was just they just have the song, very generic song, I think, talking about how about all the things she did, such as killing Sparky, and she's the one who sends Pietro, the fake Pietro, who was played by Evan Peters, right? That's the name. Who was the Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. But then we just realized he's actually no one but Ralph Boner, and then they crack a boner joke at the end, boner, something like that. But that one that was very quite expected, but that really didn't really stand out that much. The only reason why, well, not only reason, but the reason why I still didn't really hate this, I hate the fact that they show Agatha Harkness as the villain. I didn't put it in the bad section. I just put it under the ugly category instead of the bad category, was because of her character, and more importantly her origin story. Just the way they use the Salem witch trials to show how she gets her her powers, how she kills her mother and all the people working for her mother. But apart from that, I really didn't. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it was just okay the way they just reveal how Agatha Harkness was the villain with the Agatha All Along song, which is again, like I said, generic. I think apart from that, that's really what I thought about Agatha Harkness. But yeah, of course, I think the way she uses Wanda and the way the way they finally have a challenge for Wanda, because if you have watched the previous movies where Wanda was really powerful, she almost killed Thanos, if you remember, in Avengers Endgame. And so that just showed how powerful Wanda really was. But Agatha Harkness was a real challenge for Wanda, even though Wanda could actually beat her. And the reason why she wanted to challenge Wanda was so that she could get her powers, which was which is a quite justifiable reason why she wanted to challenge Wanda. But apart from that, I think that's what I really thought about Agatha Harkness. So there's that. Now that I've talked about Ugly, I guess that's it for this video. And of course, I would like to know about your thoughts about the show. And if you haven't watched the show, you should really check it out. And yep, thank you for watching. See you next time.